Greetings to everybody, everywhere. Welcome to the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine webinar series. Thank you so much for joining us. We're coming to you here from different locations all around the world, and we're very pleased to have you join us today. Our topic for today's webinar is addressing fear and trauma in the time of the COVID-19 public health crisis. We are very honored and delighted to welcome a special panel of guests, all of whom are experts in the field of dealing with people's trauma, helping people deal with their mental and emotional and physical welfare and health. Our experts panel here today are very highly qualified and very special guests. We are really happy to have them with us. Today, we're going to be discussing with Geshe Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, we're extremely happy to have with us today. Also, Dr. Ed Schmookler, PhD. Also, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. So we are very happy to have them join us here today. I'll tell a little bit about our guests and give a little background, and then we will launch into our discussion. Geshe Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche is a renowned and celebrated teacher of the ancient Bon spiritual tradition of Tibet. He is known for the depth of his wisdom and his unshakable commitment to helping his students recognize their true nature. Rinpoche is the author of many books and various online courses. Rinpoche teaches in a warm and engaging style, frequently drawing on examples from contemporary culture and modern life to bring these ancient Bon tradition teachings to life and make them relevant for modern people today as a powerful basis for spiritual growth. Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche is the founder and spiritual director of the Ligmingcha International, a global community of practitioners in the ancient Bon spiritual tradition of Tibet. Rinpoche is a respected and beloved teacher, meditation master. He is an accomplished scholar in all aspects of the Sutra, Tantra, and the Dzogchen traditions. He has studied in more than 20, Rinpoche has students in countries all around the world, in over 25 countries, and he teaches all around the world to thousands of people, and he is very prolifically active, making the online content and lots of resources for people to learn and enjoy. Rinpoche, thank you so much for being with us today. It's truly an honor.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for a wonderful introduction.
Next, I would like to welcome our special guest in Berkeley, California, Dr. Ed Schmookler, PhD. Dr. Schmookler graduated from Harvard University and received his PhD in psychology from UC Berkeley. He has 35 years of experience working with the treatment of trauma. Dr. Schmookler treats trauma of all kinds in adults and children as well. He has authored several texts working with the management and treatment, deep diving into the treatment of trauma. And he is a quite renowned practitioner here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Dr. Schmookler, thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Adam. And I'm really honored to be with the other two participants, both of whom have helped me and taught me over many years. And so I feel extremely honored to be here, and I hope I can serve. So.
And for our panel, we would like to welcome Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. Always wonderful to have Menpa Wangmo with us. Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo is a practitioner of traditional Tibetan medicine with over 30 years of experience in a clinical practice as well as teaching. She received her advanced degree from the Lhasa University School of Traditional Medicine. Menpa Wangmo is the director of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. She teaches Tibetan medicine programs, curricula all around the world, developing the programs and teaching students in the United States, Spain, Italy, Russia, and many places for many years. Menpa Wangmo is also the co-founder of the American Tibetan Medical Association, Atma, a Tibetan medicine professional organization supporting practitioners and providing resources in the United States and beyond. Menpa Wangmo, thank you so much for joining us. As always, it is a delight to have you with us. I will be your moderator today. My name is Adam Okerblom, Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, practitioner and certified instructor of Tibetan medicine. I am a graduate of the Shang Institute, and I practice and live here in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's wonderful to be here and to welcome this delightful panel of guests. I'll tell you a little bit about the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. We have programs in person and online all around the world. We offer various courses ranging from short webinars and lectures all the way to our full-length 4-year program certification in traditional Tibetan medicine. We would love to have you on our mailing list, so feel free to subscribe. Check out our website, Tibetan Medicine. Our website is tibetanmedicineschool.org and is newly revamped. Follow us on the social media, and thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. Also, I'd like to mention the American Tibetan Medical Association, Atma. You can check out Atma at americantibetanmedicalassociation.org. We provide resources for practitioners and also supporters of Tibetan medicine here in the United States. We are now accepting professional memberships as well as student and supporting community memberships as well. If you are looking for resources in traditional Tibetan medicine, trying to find a practitioner in your local area, trying to figure out how you can learn more, and just what is happening with the world of traditional Tibetan medicine in the modern day times here in the United States and beyond, please visit Atma, the American Tibetan Medical Association. Okay, and once again, thank you all so much for joining us all around the world. We're wishing you the best of health and many blessings, and we are delighted to have you with us today. So today we're going to be discussing working with the issues of the trauma and fear associated with this very challenging and heartbreaking COVID-19 global health pandemic. So we have a lot of anxiety, a lot of changes, some uncertainty about the future and this sort of thing, really causing a lot of stress and trauma for many people. Also, sadly, many people have lost relatives and have had serious health threats to their lives. So, of course, this is a very traumatizing situation. So we want to discuss with our panel of experts some resources and tools we can use to mitigate this and how we can understand this from the perspective of traditional Tibetan Bon and Buddhist philosophy, also modern Western medical psychology, and also traditional Tibetan medicine practice as well. So with that, hopefully we will have a broad perspective of innovative concepts and ideas to work with. So Rinpoche, I would like to start with you. Can you please start by just telling us a little bit about you work with many people and you have a broad global community of students and friends and associates. So how are people in your world coping and responding to this global health crisis, emotionally, mentally? The people in your community, how are they responding to the COVID-19 issue?
First of all, I wanted to thank you for inviting me and Shang Institute's this panel discussion. I'm very honored to be here. So just the answer to your question is, I think like every community, so the community that I'm in, my family and my relatives, my community, Sangha, what we call cyber Sangha, I think it's the same like every other community is dealing with. There are people who are really facing challenges, feeling really difficult of this very unstable, unknown, unpredictable situation. And there are also people who are doing quite okay with it. You know, okay with that means they are bringing their own spiritual practice there. They're bringing there some sense of positive outlook that this is a not obstacle. Maybe this is opportunity. Maybe the time they wanted to take off from their work, they never could entire their life. The virus is helping to do that. It's a global, universal retreat, a collective communities retreat, family retreat is an opportunity. And some people are really taking that way and they're making the best out of it. And so as a community, as a teacher here myself, I'm trying to, I'm supposed to be a year off. I'm not traveling, I'm not teaching, but somehow I felt like I cannot just stay quiet and comfortable here and cozy with my family. I felt like this is the time that the community needs me, and I need to help as much as possible in our own organization and also any other organization, many different, anywhere they wanted me to say something, I'm trying to do my best and trying to make time available. So we all as a community, we're trying to do best to support each other. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Yes, I have also seen some of your recent content with working with your Cyber Sangha organization, and it's just so wonderful that you're providing some of those resources and taking time to be available to help the community in that way. It's truly wonderful. So I want to thank you personally for that. So as you said, we see a lot of challenges, but also some silver linings. And a lot of people we've been talking to lately have been bringing up this idea like a retreat kind of time. So it's very interesting. Dr. Schmookler, so you are in the San Francisco Bay Area in the Berkeley, and you are working with many patients and also just many people in your extended community. We've had a shelter in place order for several months now, a lot of tension. A lot of sort of logistical challenges with the grocery store and the working and all of this sort of thing. So in your work and experience, how are people reacting emotionally, mentally, dealing with this situation? What has been the reaction you've seen in your community?
Well, in my community, which is my neighborhood, people come out and they have happy hour on Sunday night and all join each other with masks on and sit out and enjoy each other. So that talks about one of the benefits that one can acquire, which is to make connections with the people who are closest. And I've gotten to know my neighbors and feel much closer to them than I have. I've been here for like 50 years or something. And so that's a benefit. In my community, as far as my clients, I have been very surprised to discover that very few of them are frightened. Most of them, it's like, no. I think because many of them, I work with trauma, people with trauma, this is not that much compared to what they've lived with. Some people have been very triggered though, and some people are extremely reactive. Other people less so. Some people are reactive, and they also have one of the best way. They also have deep resources, spiritual resources. So they know how to go in and work with their own reactivity and then interact with the people around them in much more effective ways, and also listen to their own inner voices of what their reactions are. So I feel very blessed to have the people that I work with. I learned so much from them. Basically, the story is that well, never mind that part. I just am very happy to be with the people that we serve each other, basically. I learn from them. And the main pain that I have noticed among the people that I know personally and work with are from the extroverts. The introverts, not so much, but the people who have had injury in making connections when they're very young, they are the people who are hurting the most, because they don't have that little bit of connection that they had that kept them going. So they're the ones that are in the greatest amount of pain, and that's a very hard one. So I think that says a bit about what I've been encountering.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. I think that we can all relate to that. People who are used to being very social and extroverted and community connected are having more of a hard time. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and the introverts on the other side, the introverts are the ones that, yeah, this is a retreat. This is like, hey, finally the world, is living like I have always lived. And so that's very nice. I can just step out and enjoy this moment and don't go deep inside. And so that's another direction that people can follow. They're not so bothered so much as they have been all their lives by so much input that they can't handle. And it's too overwhelming. So in a way, it's a benefit for them to be closed down, not to be in the virus, but that part. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo, thank you so much for joining us again. So, you are working with many people through the practice and the teaching of Tibetan medicine, and many people really rely on being connected with you through the community. You have an international community of friends and students in many places. So I feel that you have a quite unique perspective. Also, I know that you are quite connected with the local Tibetan community and many people in your local area as well. So can you tell us, what have you seen in your greater community, the reaction to this COVID-19 crisis?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, be with Rinpoche, and then the Dr. Ed. So, yeah, as Rinpoche and then the two other mentioned, so this virus or this issue is affected to whole global, is not this group or that group. So this is one thing, yes. And then I can see sort of like there's two groups of people. There's someone is take this is sort of like a good, like a model, how we need to be in the future, how important your neighbors, how important your families, how important support each other. So this is one, even though we say it's like a physical or social distance, but our heart looks like it came into more closer. So this is really is something, is good things to see. People really understand, and it's nothing important. Important is like be kind to each other and then be support each other, either your like a family or your neighbors, and then it's like your communities. So this is something is good things. Then inside there, of course, there are a few people it's having sort of like difficulty times. One is like people already sort of like a weakness of their health conditions or their financials, their whatever they're weak. So those people get more fears. So we do not know really the disease. So when they come, this disease came to in the news, looks like it's like a monster, like a disease can affect everybody. Then whoever affected is looks like it will die, sort of like. So this like that the news and then outlooking that the natures of the disease is, I think, made us like a big fear. And then every day hearing all those numbers going up, not going down, sort of like it is fear. It is really scary, a disease. So this kind of like, I think they made such a big fear for the people. And then on top of that, we do not know when they will end it, because still we do not have really an answer when they end. And then after everything, do we get like exactly like a normal life as like before? Yes or no? Is it we don't have still an answer. Everybody hoping yes, soon will we get back to the normal life, but we don't have an answer. So this kind of issue, I think, is everybody get a little bit fear, and then also stress. Yes, the first few weeks, I think everybody had a pretty good time to be at the home, but then slowly is a little too long. Now they do not know how long need to stay. So I think this kind of thing, they like there's two groups. There's one people like feel like, okay, this is a great opportunity to be with the family, to be with the neighbors, to do something studies, to read books, to do practice, to do yogas. They so like observe the inside, then needed to develop the inner knowledge or inner experience, and then to utilize this into their daily life. And there's someone who does not have this kind of like a background, and then they have more sort of like a fears. So that's what I can see. But it's a good part I want to say is like a, and this time I think everybody learned important is be kind to each other and then support each other. That looks like every ethnicity, every group, they understood this one. So I think that's really, we hope, keep continue, be kind, be support each other.
Thank you so much, Menpa Wangmo. So let's go now to Rinpoche. Rinpoche, in the study of Tibetan Bon and Buddhist philosophies, we know that we are working with learning about the nature of our mind, learning about our mental and emotional state, what are the challenges and also the opportunities from our own state of mind. So in terms of your expertise, can you give us some insight into what is the nature of fear and trauma? What does it mean and what are its effects? Can you give us some insight into fear from these traditions?
So I think as Dr. Ed said, I think one of the things is the trauma from the childhood trauma who has not processed properly, and that seed trace is still there. And then the experiences of like a pandemic, all the crisis, this virus crisis, and much harder to process. So basically, I think idea of trauma and fear, it's not something outside, it's not an object, right? It is trauma and fear. It's not so much of how interaction with somebody, or what happens to you in your life. There's so many things happens to you in your life. Many things you can call it great, many things you can call it not good, many things you can call it horrible, many things you can call it trauma. It's how you see them, how you feel them, and how it affects you. That is, when you're not able to process something strong and fearful, tragic happens in the childhood or even adulthood, when you're not able to process it, then it traumatizes you. It becomes cause of fear, and then these traces that remain you, it affects you. I just heard, I don't know if it's how true it is or not, but when the children are traumatized and the childhood did not process them, their chances of getting sick is far greater, and their heart disease and lung cancer, and even the mortality rate is like a 20%, has a 20-year less than every other healthier people who is not traumatized. And this is quite a shocking news, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, from the Dharma point of view, I think it's really important to remember that every given moment we have opportunity to make the circumstances that we are in to become a cause of traumatizing ourselves, because it's just an experience. I mean, and how you see it, how you feel it, how you relate to it, how you process it, how you let go of it, they become more like a door, more like a support, more like your strength, your armors, rather than your obstacles. So I think the main point here is in terms of the fear and trauma, to see who is afraid, who is traumatizing, rather than saying, oh, when something like that happened, it's horrible. World is horrible. This situation is horrible. No, situation does not have to be horrible. World does not be horrible if you can see it differently. So I think the main question is here is traumatizing and the fear in order to overcome and in order to process better, in order to be not affected negatively by it, it has address self, addressing who. When you have more question, who am I? What I call it pain identity. If pain identity is faced by another pain, two pain is worse than one pain. But if the awareness is facing experiences of pain, it's just one pain. And that pain needs the awareness. The awareness is the cause for healing. It heals. So the pain, it's good that pain arises because you're ready to be aware. You're ready to be illuminated. You're ready to be processed. So I think the very important part is the who, the processor, the self, to always try to address that rather than always, like looking at the news, counting the death, counting the sick people, counting all these horrible. I mean, even you look at the news media, one thing, I mean, I love to watch news. I watch news. And if you, in this country, in the United States, you watch this news like CNN and Fox News. This is absolutely duality, It seems like instead of providing helpful information about health to people, they're just fighting between each other all the time. Full time is fighting each other, politically, making it a political issues. Or even in situations like a mask. I mean, nobody talks about, we were in this country, they were delayed 2 months, we're delayed wearing a mask. Biggest country, most powerful, most informed, science, everything is there. And we could not figure out, took 2 months to wear the mask. And I understand N95 it's for the health workers, but they can make a law. If you wear N95, we'll fine you $1,000. If you have it, you sell it back, we will buy it. That's all what you need in order for everybody to wear something what we are wearing now could have protected, but nobody talks that, So anyway, sorry for my pain speech here. So main issue is what I'm saying here is it's about the self, who is seeing, experiencing every given moment. I think that is where the meditation is coming.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche. Yes, that mainstream media culture can sometimes be a great example of not having that awareness or separation from our issues and this sort of thing. But you're saying that awareness can be the cause of our healing and the cause of our growth. So a painful situation can be the opportunity to bring that awareness and let us examine our own condition a little more deeply. Thank you so much. Dr. Schmookler, can you please give us a little bit of insight into the nature of trauma, the nature of fear, what it comes from, and its general effects? What is your perspective with your expertise in the modern Western medical psychology?
Right. So there's trauma and there's fear, and they're separate. But fear is a reaction of the central of the basically it's in the brain, it's in the base of the brain, and it is actually built there as a response to a dangerous situation. Act. The sympathetic nervous system gets going and you have three choices. You freeze, you fight, or you flee. Those are what we're built for. That's when a predator is going to get us. We have a problem with this situation right now, which is that I call it the invisible dragon. Where is it? And it's so vague. It could be anywhere. That person over there might breathe on me. And so there's this constant, you know, I've got a mask, but somebody just ran past me. What about the stuff? I better put my mask, you know, that kind of thing. There's a lot of potential for seeing danger everywhere, and it's continuous. For the initial response, it's very important and to have it so that you have vigilance. But what happens is that it gets wearing over time and the system gets kind of overwhelmed and that gets tiring. So how do you take the good news of the fear, the built-in response, and turn it into something that's not traumatic? And there's a number of steps to do that. Part of it is to separate, I'm going off of what Rinpoche said. No, I'm not. What I'm saying is about to relate to what he was saying. You want to be able to listen to the fear. You can't ignore it because the fear is telling you, stay away, keep your distance. You know, I was in a bank. They wanted me to stand right next to somebody. No, you know, that was yesterday. So there's this vigilance that you need to have. You need to have that fear alive, but you don't want it consuming you. So for that, you need to be able to access your deep inner resources, whatever those might be. If you're an artist, then you draw or you paint. If you're a therapist, you can go out and help people. If you are a meditator, you can draw on. People with spiritual resources can do much more than people who don't have those kind of resources. But whatever your inner resources are, you draw upon that. And that is what is going to help you get through it. And there's a number of different steps in that process that we can talk about as we go forward. That's my initial response to the question of what is fear and what trauma is. I didn't answer that question. Is something that overwhelms the system. If you can't process it, then it's traumatic. So anything you can do to process this, breathing, feeling, getting in touch with, knowing what you're feeling, being able to be with that, listening to that, responding to it, but not letting it take over. All of that stuff is ways that you start changing a situation that can become traumatic, because a life-threatening situation is part of the definition of what causes PTSD. And what you need to be able to do is to be able to transform the situation and transform things so that you will be able to move out of the trauma, and that this will have become part of your history, and you will have digested it and you will have used it for your own growth. And that's what I think a lot of people are doing. And we can talk about the steps in that as we go forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schmookler. Yes, thank you for clarifying that distinction between fear and trauma as completely kind of separate aspects. It's very interesting how you say that fear mechanism comes from the very base, most primal reptile part of our brain. And then if we are unable to properly deal with that or process that, then the outcome can be this long-term trauma, this unresolved aspect. Thank you so much. Menpa Wangmo, can you please tell us a little bit from the perspective of traditional Tibetan medicine, this elemental medicine, working with the aspects of our body and our energy and our mind, working with the 5 elements and how they operate within our own physiology. So we know that the mental emotional part of this study is very important. So from Tibetan medicine perspective, how should we understand fear and anxiety and trauma.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, I just enjoyed to listen the two presenters, so I'm a little bit distracted. Anyway, yes, that the Tibetan medicine understanding, sort of like when we put it like a simple way, the fear, anxiety, and also trauma. Yes, all element is imbalanced, but special the element of the lung, which we call the lung, which is the wind element, is imbalanced when we're looking sort of like a physiology part. So this is one thing. But it's like when we're looking the fear, what I see, the fear is sort of like that the futures. So your worry is something for the futures. Why is your worry about the future? Maybe sometimes there is a reason, like this time, but sometimes there's no any reasons, but still we worry for the futures. Sometimes we worry when I get 80 years old, my health, what will be? Maybe I'm at the nursing homes. Maybe I have this disease, that disease. Even I do not know I'm going to live 80 years, but still we worry about when I get to the 80 years. So this kind of like that, why we think in that one in the Tibetan medicine, we said is like imbalance of the lung, because you not able to settle down, grounding, your sort of like the mind is overreacting. So this is sort of like that the future things. Once we have a lot of this kind of fears, and that it is traumatized to our nerve systems or our body systems, and then that sort of like that the result of that fear and their like trauma remains within us, then that disease, then they bring up a problems. An example, most of the time people who has fears, traumatized, and they lost, the number one symptom is they're lost sort of like confident by themselves. They're self-confident, they're lost. They do not have any confidence by themselves. They don't believe what they can do, what they can say, what the good things. So then when they're looking either outside or inside, wherever they look at, and they feel everything is like a negative. So then this is sort of like after the result of the fear, so then bring this kind of problems. So then that we call is sort of like a more like that trauma. Trauma could be physical trauma or the mental trauma. So this is a more like a mental trauma or energy trauma. And then if you have this kind of like trauma long-term in your body, within you, and then slowly that also can damage to the physical, because it's like the Tibetan medicine, the physical body, mental, and then energy, these three as like the three siblings as a team working each other, like support each other, reliance each other, work as a team. One of them is imbalanced, the other two also will affect it. So for that reason, as once you have long-term like the imbalance of the wind element, that can lead fear. Fear can lead trauma, and the trauma can lead also the physical problems. Or if you have some reason, there is a little bit of worry about for the futures, health issue, financial issue, whatever, that long-term, that fear can damage the wind element. Through the wind element, it can damage the nerve system. Through the nerve system can damage the brains. And then starting from there, then the whole entire body also get the problems. As we know that the nerve the root of the nerve is on the brain. So any kind of like a nerve damage is like affected to the brain. And then Tibetan medicine, what we say is like that the channels present as like a tube, like the road. Wind present as like the vehicle. In that vehicle carrying all the supplies, what we need to regenerate to the body, like bodily constituents or the like materials or the energies, everything carrying into that vehicle, which means everything moves through the wind. So if you have the wind element access or something imbalanced, yes, then we will have a lot of those kind of problems. So simply we say it's like the fear, anxiety is more like future, worries for the future. And the depression, those kind of like more like a past, like regret something, what I did, what happened. So then it's like more like that the depression, this kind of more like related to the past life. I mean the past, and then the anxiety and then the fear is like more like futures.
Thank you so much.
That's your question. Did I get the answer for your questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Because
Thank
as
you.
I said, I'm a little bit distracted because I enjoyed listening the two other presenters. Yeah.
Me as well. I'm often so impressed by what you are all saying that I'm a little bit speechless after. Probably a good thing. Thank you so much for that description. When we study a little bit about the Tibetan medicine, as you said, we know the importance of this wind element, this lung, and our neurological system connection. And that was an amazing analogy you presented, saying simply that the channels in our body are like roads, and then this lung, our wind element energy, is like a vehicle. That's really very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And also that does not mean is only wind element can cause, but any other element imbalance they can cause, but wind element is the main sort of like leading part. That's I want to say.
Thank you so much once again, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. So, Rinpoche, one thing I've noticed, so I have been checking out some of your recent content that has been very contextually germane to the COVID-19 crisis and dealing with it. So one thing that I've seen you have talked about recently is the traditional practice of a chud. Chud being a special type of meditation practice in the Bon and Buddhist paths, working with a lot of very interesting imagery, but having a core sort of philosophical basis, a sort of core idea about why we do this interesting practice of the chud. And it seems like it's very useful and pertinent idea when talking about overcoming fear. So can you please tell us a little bit, however you would like to say, about the chud practice and how it might help us with this fear and what it all means?
Yes. So first, I wanted to go back our conversation, three of us, our conversation. I think Dr. Ed said very helpful to make distinction between fear and trauma. And so some sense, I think we all kind of know some sense that fear is part of our basic human conditions. Probably in some sense, it is necessary to protect ourselves. So in some sense, there is a place of fear in our life in some way that fear can guide our life. Fear does not have to stop our life. Fear can, like when you're cautious and you're trying to be aware and you're trying to take right action. So sometimes fear can guide you rather than fear freezes you. I think that's important. It does not need to freeze you. It should open and guide you. As far as the trauma is concerned, I think it's also the same, that I think it's nice to feel that no matter how much you traumatize in your life, there is a solution. There is a solution with working with 5 elements. There is a solution working with your own, bringing the awareness of your body, working with your breath, working with the light of awareness of your mind, somehow making connection through your body, speech, and mind to heal, I think. And the other thing is, I think, to trying to be always aware not every situation in life, no matter how difficult it is, not to make it a cause of traumatizing situation in the future of your life, no matter how old you are and all of our age. We don't have, like this COVID-19 situation does not have to be another trauma for next 20 years you have to work on. You know, this could be a completely incredible door. There's a fear, it could be door to open a completely new world, totally new world of boundless world, infinite possibility world, a sense of connection and healing world. For example, you know, like our physical distance clearly became a causes of emotional closeness for so many people, but only people who are aware of that. For other people, this closeness became everything closeness, as Dr. Ad said, they were very extroverted people. So I think I just wanted to make that comment there, and then going back to the Chö, and Chö is of course a very traditional Tibetan practice. I think for many thousands of years, the essence of the Chö in the Dzogchen tradition, in Tantric tradition, in the Sutric tradition, and later around 11th century, more elaborated, Patamba Sangje, Machig Lapnyo, then many different traditions, the Chö practice became very widespread. Maybe it could have been more widespread, but enough widespread, I guess. So one thing I love this practice is also, it's a practice by not only, you know, usually we think about practices only the monastery and the monks doing the practices. The lay people are not responsible for doing the practice of spiritual growth. Those are up in the cave in the monastery doing it. No, it's not like that. So somehow it feels like that sometimes, even in the Tibetan tradition, you know, it feels like even you're doing a ritual, you have to call somebody else to do it. So somehow Chö practice is a practice by lay people, practiced by couples together. My wife and we practice every night. So a practice by a woman, and it has much more integrated as a nature of the practice. And I think it's a beautiful. And in a way, it makes sense because it is really powerful, very healing, and it's very directly working with the fear. And so fear, attachment. And so Chö practice is basically very much, I think I would say a simple way, it's cutting the pain identity, because the pain identity is the cause of the unable to process fear. Pain identity can be the cause. When fear, you don't allow fear to guide you, but fear to block you. Pain identity is also issue when you do face fearful situation, you're not able to process, and that experience becomes trauma for you and the rest of your life. So it's unable to process it. As I said earlier, it's who is more important than what happens to you. Many times people always talk about what happened to you as cause of horrible thing. So many things happens in the life. So many unfortunate things happens in the life. Not everybody whom what happens does not have to traumatize, does not have to destroy, does not have to affect negatively, but it can open completely door. It make you strong. It uplift you completely. So that these possibilities are completely there. So it's very much working and in ego or pain identity, and what gives birth by ego and fear, ego and pain identity is the attachment, and most important thing, attachment is on our body, because as you're saying, even the fear is kind of rooted in our body and in our brain. So somehow, even though they are there, your relationship to your own body can change what's happening energetically in your body and emotion. So it's a very powerful practice. You know, I have invited a number of practitioners from different traditions to do the Chö practice, because it's a practice by so many different traditions. And I feel it's a time that all the different traditions come together, share practice, support each other, learn from each other. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche. So let's go from there. Let's follow right in, actually a good segue, and let's talk with Dr. Schmookler once more. So Dr. Schmookler, Rinpoche is describing to us how some of the potential opportunities of this kind of this fearful situation can be transformed, can be worked with. So can you please tell us from the medical perspective, from this public health perspective, what are some of the sort of harmful, deleterious effects that we're seeing from this kind of fearful situation in society now? And also, what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing for personal growth, for some of the kind of silver linings? Can you tell us a little bit about how you're perceiving that?
Yeah, I'll try. I just want to start by saying this is such a joy for me to be talking with these incredible people today. I'm not just honored, but I'm so much enjoying the communication from each of these different perspectives and from these wonderful people. So I want to express that. Of course, the deleterious effects one should mention is people going through the actual illness and going in the worst parts of the illness. I'm sure we've all read about what that's like, and that's no joke. I mean, that's horrible, and I wouldn't expect the people to get over it. That kind of horrible situation. And for the most of us, we are locked in or locked down. Most people don't get that sick unless they have underlying conditions. But for the people who aren't sick, I think one of the biggest problems is that social distancing becomes just that. It's distancing. If you're seeing other people as threats, I think it's very, very damaging in terms of, it can be damaging in terms of relationships. Speaking of which, the lockdown has created, I have a client who is a therapist for couples. He's been flooded by couples. They expected, and they are now finding that people who are locked down there's more child abuse and there's more spousal abuse. This was expected, and in fact, it's happening. People are having anxiety all over the world, and they're also having depression. These are some of the impacts. Part of that last part has to do with the economic impact of all this, which is not what we're talking about. But the fear is actually about about what's going to happen to me. Am I ever going to be able to support myself again? And that's very real. So I guess I'm talking about just some of the realities here that are actually frightening. And I want to just say that one of the opportunities here is you can't live with that. As Menpa said, you can't live in the future, and that's not going to help you. It is important that you anticipate and try to figure out what you're going to do, but how do you get there? The first step in that, and here's part of the opportunity, is to be present. You don't, I'm wondering, am I visible on this screen? I couldn't tell. Anyway, I'm just going to assume I am. You want to become
quite visible. You're looking good. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay. You want to be here now. In the Bible, it says, don't worry about tomorrow. Today's got enough problems. And that is so true. Even this moment has enough problems if you get really good at it. In the 12-step program, it's like one day at a time. And to me, that has been one of the great learnings, because one day at a time brings you here, it brings you now, and the next step. So you come home to here. You have to, otherwise you're out there just anticipating, and that doesn't solve. You have to be here in yourself, and you have to have presence. That's the first step. The next step would be to have some calm, and I think both of the other people on this panel know much more about that than I do. So I'm going to defer to them about how to have a calm presence. Definitely meditation can do much for that. And the lung, working with that, with the Tibetan medicine, that is so helpful to be able to come here and come now, rather than being just dispersed, which is what lung does. It brings us up and out rather than down and in. So another component of this is grounded presence, be here and now and in your body. And part of that has to do with just paying attention to what is going on inside my body and trying to feel my way in, because actually the access to this part of the brain, the reptile part, is through sensation. That's what I have been taught by my teacher, Dr. Peter Levine. And so being here, being now, and being grounded are three of the first steps. And I'll go further than that as we go forward. Oh, and being calm. See, I just left that out. I have to work hard at that. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much. Wow, so we can access that kind of primal fear mechanism of our ancestral brain using using sensation. So can we keep chatting a little bit? I wanted to ask you a follow-up question to that, Dr. Ed.
Yes.
But first, let's why don't I give you a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back. We'll keep our rotation going, and then we'll come back. But in a few minutes, I want to ask you about some of the more specific methods for dealing with the trauma, because you and I were discussing some really interesting aspects in our pre-chat earlier. But first, let's go on, and we'll come back in a few minutes. That sound okay?
Sounds good.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much for that. So, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. So we're talking about some of the methods of kind of dealing with the trauma and dealing with avoiding these kind of effects of the fear in the long term. So you earlier described to us that the long-term accumulation of this kind of fear, worrying about the future, kind of being in that state long term, can be really problematic. Can you tell us a little bit more, just go into a little bit more in depth about some of the ways that the long-term fear can be harming our health chronically? And then what are some of the basic methods that you teach that we can overcome that and we can avoid that long-term fear? Because in our modern society, we have less of an issue of a lion chasing us for the short-term fear of a short-term threat, and more issue of this long-term chronic anxiety. So I'm sure you see a lot of that in your practice. So what are some of the effects of the long-term fear, and how do we in general deal with that?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So yes, once you have to have the fears, anxieties, depressions, all those kind of things, it's a time to time, either with a certain conditions or certain unconditions, it appears. So I do not really think is completely we can get out of that. But important is, as Rinpoche and also Dr. Ed said, is like to understand it, to acknowledge that, and then to be aware of that, and don't stay that with you rest of your life. So simply, when we're looking now, the pandemic, this disease, as this disease has affected the whole world, not only me or you. So this sort of like to understanding more bigger, larger community, how they affected when you observe to the other people's, and then your cases may not that bad. Sometimes it's I tell people when they explain to me all the miserable things. Sometimes I tell them as you go and watch a little bit of news, what's happening in the world. So some people think it's like my food is not good enough. People who live in the United States. Maybe it's not organic enough. Maybe it's not this good enough. But if you look at other countries, some other like a corner of our world, there's some people, there's no food. They're not talking the qualities of the food. Is their quantity is missing, there's no food. They're not talking the nutrition food, organic food, high quality food, non-processed food. They're not talking that. They're just missing a food. So when you're thinking that, and you should understand, thank God, at least I have food. Does not matter either this is organic or not organic. And there's some people sick, then they complain everything. Of course, I mean, sick is a complaint is a very natural, because the doctor is not fast enough, because his appointment is takes too long, because of this, because of that. But when we're looking at other countries, some other countries, other regions, the treatment is not available. We are at the moment, the 21st century, we are living this global. Even this same global, we are living as like a human in this, like we are like sharing this world, like this nature. We says like a land or the nature is hosting us, like a mother hosting us, like that the nature hosting us, same movement. But one person talking the qualities of the food, the other person is a shortage of the food. One talking like the qualities of the healthcare, the other does not have any, like the available, there's no available of the treatment. So when we look in these kind of things, you understand how I'm lucky. Sometimes I think is if we go a little outside of the yourself, go looking to your neighbors, communities, also outside of your countries, and you can see, of course, there are some people who are much better than you, but there are also some people who are much worse than you. So this kind of thing is, I think, to get us is like they appreciate your life and appreciate your like conditions. So this also, I think, is important, not always think just focusing yourself. Try to look a little more outside. Also, this helps us when you see other people more suffering. That also get us a little bit of like sympathy, empathy, whatever, like more like a kind towards to the other people's. That's benefit. There are two things. One is to get like it move to your heart, sympathy to the other. In the meantime, you acknowledge, oh my goodness, I'm good enough. At least I have food. At least I have doctors. At least I have a place to stay. At least there's no one torturing me. You know, this safe, my life is safe. So this, all those kind of things is, I think to understanding is very important. People, special people, when there is suffering time. Because if you worry everything's future, it's a future we do not know what happened. So this is one thing I think important part. So this kind of like fear then brings a lot of problems. Simply is like if you have a lot of worries, as we said before, that can increase the wind element. Nature of the wind is cold. That cold roughness of the wind develop into your body, and that it can extinguish the metabolic systems. Simply worry also can losing like digestive heat. So this is one thing. Another one is to worry about things increasing the wind element. The wind element increase, and in your body develops sort of like a tendency roughness. Your nature is became little rough, short tempers, little aggressive, short tempers. So that short temper also people away from you, because people cannot stay with you somehow, that you are too short temper. And then soon later you feel again is a loneliness. Another one also this like that the wind element develops, and you cannot sleep. Why? Because wind has the nature of the light, opposite of the heavy. So you cannot grounding, you cannot sleep. Not sleep, then we know, oh, there is another set of the problems. So the wind is, we says like that the Nanzhen, but Tibetan medicine, we said the wind is like the leader of all the problems. Does not mean other element is a problem. They're not talking. The wind is that the one of the main like leadership of all the problems. So for this kind of reason, I think the important to know these kind of things, to understanding these kind of things, as the two previous the presenter said, is like be aware, so like to understanding that. That comes to the treatment or to help for that. Tibetan medicine is a very holistic system. Tibetan medicine, we don't do this A or B or C. Tibetan medicine approach is completely like holistic. Yes, we have the physical aspect problems, subtle energy aspect problems, mental aspect problems. Then we have, based on that, we have different, like the rough treatment, natural treatment, more subtle treatment. Like meditation is one of our treatment. Yoga is one of our treatment. Diet behave is one of our treatment. Music is like one of our treatment. Then, as Rinpoche said, is like your practice is one of the best, is to get out of the fears, because you try to deal with that fear. So then you try to understand what is the fear. So once you understood, once you find out what is the fear, then you became like a friend of the fear. So then this country, there is a lot of like Tibetan medicine. What I see is like that the theory of the Tibetan medicine is completely sort of like the integrative system. And then approach of the Tibetan medicine is fully holistic. The Tibetan medicine, when we're talking like a meditation also, there's a different levels of the meditation, what I understand, sort of like my idea. And also like diet behave, yoga. Also the yoga is, there's many different types of the yoga. There's a yoga, when we're talking yoga, there's not only one yoga, only one benefit. Yoga for the physical yoga, yoga for the mind, yoga for the breathing, yoga for the energy. So there's many types of the yoga we can practice. Why we have all those like different sadhanas? Because sometimes we try to deal with our physical body. Sometimes we try to deal with our energy. Sometimes we try to deal with our mind. And then preventing system, we try to deal all three together, because these three, as we said before, as the team or as the siblings working together. So that is, so then individually, I think that already that the two presenters already mentioned that maybe the Dr. Ed can explain a little more details how we can deal with. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Menpa Wangmo. Yes, that's very interesting. And it does remind me very much how Dr. Ed was saying. So, you mentioned these different general techniques we can use to balance our lung energy, our wind element energy. And you mentioned yoga, meditation, breathing, music. And so it's like Dr. Schmookler was telling us, the way to access that fear mechanism in our brain is through all of our senses and using those sensations. So I can see that correlation. It's fascinating, this Tibetan medicine theory of the lung, how you explained the lung can be related with our symptoms of anxiety, of insomnia, of indigestion. You said it's the leader of all disease, of all problems. So it's I think it's a very powerful tool to understand that lung and understand how you can treat holistically, all encompassing these issues in that way. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Ed, can you please tell us a little bit more? Tell us from the psychology perspective, tell us what is the healthy response to fear? And then how can we apply that? How can we avoid this famous situation of PTSD or being traumatized? How can we have a healthy response to our anxieties and avoid having unhealthy, deleterious effects long term?
I appreciate the question, and it's an interesting time to talk about that. What we find is that if you take somebody with a past trauma that has not been fully digested. You go in and you feel your sensations, and you have to come from you have to find a safe place to access yourself. So you have to find a place where you can witness separately from the event itself what's happening inside. And what happens is that when people do that, they start to feel the sensations of wanting, for example, let's say that they're starting in a freeze place, because a lot of people, especially with childhood trauma, there was no way to fight and there's nowhere to go. So freeze is the only option they had. And this is part of what creates the PTSD. What happens to unravel that is that people start to, they feel like they want to run. So they run and they picture and they feel themselves running in their body. That's one thing. So what happens is you start to activate, you move. Movement is part of what gets people out of a traumatized frozen state. Now, what's interesting, the other option, of course, is to fight. And so maybe people will see themselves beating up on the person or something, or somebody else will come in and help them, the person that was hurting them. Now, what we're noticing is right now, we can see that in the general public. We've moved from freeze, which is lockdown, into what's happening now. Everybody's mad, everybody's angry, everybody's seeing the other people as enemies. And in a certain way, this is going to help protect people from having PTSD. I mean, that's the upside of all this, is that it's crazy because people are sort of possessed by their anger, but in a certain way, getting that movement is very helpful. On an individual basis, if you want to go fight the good fight, go for it. Go do something positive that can help the situation. Like in an election, for example, you can activate. The other part of it is actually to get into your body and move. And what I suggest people to do is, if there's any way, that depends on where people are living and what the rules are where they live and what's safe and what's not safe. So I'm not trying to give any directions. I know that people in Russia can hardly walk any more than a block, and that's if they have a dog. So there's different degrees of lockdown. But if you have the opportunity and it's safe, because I don't want to lead anybody into doing something that's unsafe. I don't mean that at all. But if you can get out and go for a walk, if you can't, then you do it inside. You get moving. If you can be out in nature, that's ideal, because nature is, as Menpa says, she's the healer. She's the one that's holding us. And so if you can be out in connection with her, then it's grand. And if you can be moving and processing, that is, I think, one of the best things you can do. And if you can do it with a friend and keep social distance and wear masks as needed, if you can be out in nature, that for me is what I've encouraged people to do and what I have found for myself. That's what's most calming. And that, I think, is what's going to keep this from becoming PTSD for people in the long run. And so the opening of society, that's a good thing to get back in contact. Hopefully that can be done in a safe way. So that's my full answer.
Thank you so much. Well, that's very interesting to see the correlation between the kind of modern Western medical idea in general of activating, moving, kind of that sort of activity, and how that corresponds in a pretty direct way with exactly what Menpa Wangmo was telling us about harmonizing that lung energy, that neurological energy, and the principle of movement, because lung is movement. So if we want to avoid that lung disorder, that lung imbalance, then we apply different kinds of, movement and activity working with that dimension. So it's a very interesting correlation. Thank you so much for that insight.
I have a direct experience around that. Should I share that, or are you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I have had a phobia about freeways, but I've had a lot of driving to do, so I've gotten over it by just dealing with it. But what I've noticed is that I like to play golf, which gets me moving and gets me going. On my way to golf, I'm scared. On my way back, I'm fine. That's just my proof, and my personal proof about
it. Right, exactly.
I've already moved, and now I'm in my body, and I'm not frightened. What's to be afraid?
Right. Yes, applying just a small amount of that therapeutic activity in the correct way it can just make a world of difference, and it's palpable and you can feel it.
And everybody has to find their own way that works for them.
Excellent.
That's
Well, I
together
truly
for-
hope that regulations locally will allow you to be golfing safely as soon as possible.
I'm already doing it. It's wonderful.
Fabulous. Excellent. Yeah, we are very, very fortunate. Absolutely. As Rinpoche and Menpa La were bringing us back to the awareness of how fortunate we are, how many blessings we have to consider even in this difficult situation. So, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, can we please go back to you? And can you please tell us a little bit about what do you recommend for the general public? Many people do not have a very specific practice of meditation. Many people do, but many people do not have a lot of these tools of this training and philosophy. So what are you recommending to general public for coping with fear and for having a beneficial mental, emotional outlook with this situation? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So in Dharma teaching in general, particularly in like in a Dzogchen tradition, it says Nawa Trosacher, which means all the appearances are your support, your friend. Or sometimes we say pain turning into a path. So anytime when you experience pain, it can be your path to liberation, path to enlightenment, path to healing, path to self-discovery. So basically, as we are all experiencing these moment of fears in our life, which can then lead into trauma. So when we experience these moments of fear, first, number one thing, just to have a right concept and relationship to the fear. Fear is not bad. Fear is not bad. Nothing wrong to feel fearful. So I think that is really, really important. And as Dr. Ad said, you have, most very frequently what people do, run away or freeze. Or, running in some sense of running has positive effect. So I think I would maybe say from the point of view of the teaching will be, yes, if you do run, first maybe you don't have to freeze, you don't have to run either, because it's not a threat that you don't have to run from, get stressed out, even though running might help. Or you don't have to freeze. Again, it is not something threat. It is maybe is a challenge, but challenge that you wanted to have, challenge that you do want to overcome, because deep causes of these seeds of fear exist in you, and a certain amount that which need to come out and surface out, have to process, and you have to be free from it. That's just simple concept. So not look at something wrong with the fear. Whenever you're experiencing fear, not get lost. See, this is your opportunity. I love to face it. I love to experience it. I love to work with it. And it can guide me. You see right now in a COVID-19 situation, I went to Home Depot to buy, we are doing a lot of gardening here and family. So I went there, met some young people who were helping. They were not wearing masks. They said, I don't care. And they were young, and like that. So basically, you don't want it to be that careless either. You do want to have some sense of fear, which can guide you to be more protective. If you don't care about yourself, you should care about other people there. So it's very important that fear has a place for guiding and helping and healing. That can only do that when fear is guided with awareness. When not, fear is driven away by darkness, by ignorance. And if you run from your darkness, I guarantee you cannot run faster than your ignorance. Your ignorance will be faster than you. So somehow we do run, but I think eventually forget about running, because you're not going to run fast enough. So what you do is opportunity to face it and bring the light of awareness to the darkness of ignorance, of fear. And that means that it is your fear, as a friend, it can be your support, and take it like that. Do not run away from your life. Do not run away from fear. See that as an opportunity to open new door, infinite possibility, healing, even trauma that you have not take care of in the past, in your childhood. Maybe this can trigger to enter there and heal that. It's a door. So that, I think, very, very important, the right relationship to the fear.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche. Bringing the light of awareness to the darkness of our fear. Thank you so much. I'm so inspired by that. It's beautiful. So from there, I want to ask Dr. Ed, do you have any, as we're going to wrap up soon, do you have any closing advice, any practical wisdom or tips or any other thoughts or insights for our listeners regarding how they can work with their situation and what might benefit them from your expertise? Any closing thoughts or advice?
Yeah, actually, I would just say it's good to be kind to yourself, and it's good to be kind to others. This is a very difficult time. People are really stressed. The people you live with, they have flaws. You have flaws. It's all really obvious right now when you're locked down with them. But that's not the main point. The main point is what's underneath. You're with people who you love. If you have obstacles to that, this is a good time to see what the obstacles are. Some of my clients are doing that, and I really admire them for that. It's a good time to go within, but also it's a good time to see past all the stuff that's in the way, all this kind of what was labeled earlier, the dualism. This kind of, Rinpoche labeled it dualism. Your side and my side, and masks and not masks, and what's wrong with you? Hey, look, I can get into that just as good as anybody. I have that all the time going on in my head, and I have to constrain myself. But the anger, the anger will only serve us if we can direct it intelligently. And the best thing to do underneath all of this is to go deeper within and really, as Phuntsog, Dr. Phuntsog said, it's appreciating what we have and seeing where the disparities are and having gratitude, and also just connecting with people at a deepest level. This is the one thing that we've never been in this situation. We've been bombing these people, they've been bombing those people, this is the sort of thing. Those people have been dealing with trauma. This has been going on for centuries. Well, the bombing hasn't, but all this war has been going on for millennia. This is different. We're all in the same boat. That this virus strangely unites us. Nobody's better. Some people, the people who have money, are better off than the people who don't. They're suffering less. And also, we're all in the same boat. So this is an opportunity for us to see what unites us, not just what divides us. So that's what I would like to offer at the end.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ed. Rinpoche, since we are going to be wrapping up soon, do you have any parting thoughts, advice, or reflections for our viewers at this time?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, I think main thing is every challenging situation is an opportunity, and this is your opportunity, and make the best out of this difficult situation, so that, and you can do it, and there's a lot of support out there that you go and seek, and you will get them. So that's all.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche. And again, it's been wonderful to have you with us. I really, really appreciate it. So, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo La, thank you so much for your advice so far. Do you have any closing thoughts or advice or reflections for our audience? What would you like to say in closing?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't have a lot of things to say. They already covered with the two amazing presenters. I think is the what I want to say. It's like I remember one of my teachers, my guru Namgyal Rinpoche, his advice. He always say is work with the circumstance. So I think no matter which kind of circumstance arising, then we need to accept that and then deal with that. And then from that, we try to see what we can do be better way. Because like this, like disease, we cannot escape because it's international sick. And then we cannot hide because it's no matter where we are, there looks like somehow they enter. So there's no place, safe place. If we ask which country will be safe for this virus, looks like there's no answer because it's everywhere is affected. So you stay where you are and then work with the circumstance. So this one is one important. Then is we say is like don't worry so much. Does not mean is worry and then care is like different. Yes, of course you need to be care because it's not only your health but also other people's health. And the Buddha also they said is like in case if you cannot help to any other sentient being, you should not harm to any other sentient beings. So we should not be cause of giving someone sufferings. So this is important. So I think our own careful also important, whatever the expert CDC, they explained how should be to prevent from this disease, to avoiding from this disease. I think those all is important we need to do. Inside that, then don't worry so much because everybody is try to get something result for that. Top the president to down to the experts, everybody is running and busy, try to figure out something answer for that. So, and then inside that, we try to do not worry so much. This is one thing. Then, as I said before, that if you have the fears, then that leads the lung goes up. If the lung are rising up, which is the wind element, then comes all the problems. So same as like outside nature. So outside nature is lovely flowers, nature good, and the warm weathers, whatever grow, everything crops perfectly. When it comes, all the outer element balance, then we have all those beautiful things. Once the outer element is not balanced, we don't have all those nice things. Instead of that, we have like the disasters, which we call the natural disasters. Same like that way also our inner element is not balanced. We will have like inner natural disasters. It is a like type of disaster. And then minor disaster give us suffering. Medium and it gives more suffering. And then is a major disaster take our life. So for that reason, it's important to try to balance the inner our element. So that is a long-term talk. So if you interest more detail to study, please contact to the either Shung US or Shung Russia or the Shung School of the Tibetan Medicine in Tenerife. So we have a sort of like the experts in that field. We try to our best to explain to you what we need to do, what we can do. And in the meantime, if you get like fears, anxieties, this kind of thing, you try to put some nutmeg in your food. So the nutmeg is one of the many medicine for antidote for the lung disorders. Why? Nutmeg has nature is warm, oily. You remember I said it before, the natures of the wind, there is 6 characteristics of the wind, but one of them is light, rough, cold. So the rough need oil to antidote. So to explain to detail is it take many days, but it's simple part. When our skin is rough, what do we need to do? Put oil, no? Put the cream. Same as like that way, in a wind element imbalanced, we need oil in the body. ghee is good, olive oil is good. I'm not saying you should eat too much. I'm not talking that. Need to eat based on your age, based on your personality, based on the season, everything you need to balance well. But then those food is good. So the nutmeg is good. If you use like a quarter teaspoon of the nutmeg powder a day, would be very good for your restoring to your heart, improve your blood circulations, improve your nerve systems, improve your brain, and also to help to reduce anxieties, depressions, and also fears. Why? Because is that the cause of the fear, those kind of wind has light, rough nature, nutmeg has the oily, warm, so it's a very logical way can help. Meantime, also clove is good. Clove also has very similarities, and the special cloves and the nutmeg is particular to herbs or medicines for the wind element and then for all the circulations. So these two herbs also is very easy to access, very easy to recognize, very easy to get. So this is good. The another one, if you really feel like more anxieties, you cannot sleep, a lot of fears, also is good oil massage, which Tibetan medicine we call the kunye. At this moment, I know you cannot get out and then there's no way to you get kunye because we need to stay at least 10 feet distance, so there's no way to get kunye. But you try to apply oil by yourself. You try to heat up oils. The best one is sesame oil. Otherwise, also olive oil is good. You heat up oils, you put on the crown chakras, throat chakras, and then like the Western medicine, like C7, those places you put on the also heart chakra, and then you try to rub a little bit, massaging a little bit, or you put under the palms, under the soles. All those like help you to calm down. And in the meantime, you need to do also like yogas and then the meditation, so on and so forth. So that's I want to say. So if someone wants to learn more deeper to Tibetan medicine, please contact with the Shang School of the Tibetan Medicine. Then we will try to get back to your answers, whatever you have the questions, so you can leave the answers for Shang. So that's what I want to say. And then I want to say thank you for everyone.
Thank you so much, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. It's delightful to have you join us once again. And thank you so much for your precious advice from the teachings of traditional Tibetan medicine. Can really help us managing our day-to-day anxieties and troubles, especially in this time of the sheltering in place and the working with the COVID-19 situation. So I want to thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being a part of our webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's a very honor to be with you. And then I think it's really such a great opportunity to, as Rinpoche said before, try to help to the people. So this is also, I think that the goal of my teacher, Nanganobu Rinpoche, is want to do Tibetan medicine to benefit to the sentient beings. So this is also a great way of to try to reach to the people. So thank you organizing this one.
And thank you so much to our special guest of our panel today, Geshe Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and thank you for sharing your words of wisdom with us. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you with us. And Dr. Schmookler, thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful and insightful to have your expertise on our panel today. It has been a wonderful opportunity to have this kind of West and East dynamic, comparing and contrasting. And lo and behold, I have seen we have so much common ground in the core ideas of how we can deal with our fear in a healthy way and move forward. I see so much commonality and similarity. So I have a lot of hope for the future. And at any rate, thank you very much, Dr. Ed, for joining us, Dr. Ed Schmookler in Berkeley, California. Thank you again.
It's a real pleasure and a real honor. Thank you. It's been great. I appreciate the opportunity very much. I hope that it helps somebody.
Well, thank you all to our viewers around the world. Thank you so much for joining us and spending some time participating with us today in different places. So this is the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine webinar series. And so if you are interested in studying more about Tibetan medicine, learning more about the application and the theory of traditional Tibetan medicine, please by all means check out the Shang Institute at tibetanmedicineschool.org. We have many programs online. We have programs in person, short programs, long programs, a lot of resources. Please feel free to join our mailing list. We would love to have you on our email list to participate and collaborate.
Something froze. Yeah, well, okay. Here we are. I hope that people will join and learn more about Tibetan medicine from this, because it has so much to offer. It's part of nature, and it works with, and that what you said about balance has been so helpful to me.
Yeah, it's simple apply, you know, like very easy to apply. So yeah, maybe now the Adam come back.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry about that. I bleeped out for a second.
Yeah.
I wanted to close by saying if you are looking for some really great resources, please check out Geshe Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche's content online on the YouTube, the Cyber Sangha on Facebook. He has shared so many great teachings, short videos, long videos, a lot of really helpful content to deal with the situation and just for life in general. It's really wonderful. So I'm Adam Okerblom, coming to you from here in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine webinar series. We wish you all the best of health, many blessings, stay safe, and we will see you next time. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.